Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Guy was walking down the streets of the village watching with a smile as Naruto was running around full of energy. He also noticed a few other things. Most people would smile at the little boy, but Guy caught a few glares at the boy. He knew full well of Naruto's little guest inside of the boy, but apparently word was getting around slowly about it. Guy honestly couldn't see why you could hate such a child, but maybe the few of the elders on the council that had spoken of Naruto could have embellished certain details, meaning that they played up the demon role to the point that anyone would mistrust the boy. Even he had heard rumors of things such as a demon child that was around. They never mentioned Naruto by name, but there were things such as the child having whisker marks. In a way, they were getting around the Hokage's rule with not mentioning Naruto by name, but still this was something that would only harm the boy. Thankfully Naruto didn't notice this, as he was too happy with the thought of ramen. Guy kept a lookout for any troublemakers, that is, besides the two shadowy figures he sensed that were following them. Ninjas on the rooftops was a normal thing, but after they had left Kakashi's, he thought he felt a presence following them. As they walked on, he kept an eye out and found not one but two. They weren't bad either. They weren't a jonin, like he was most likely a high chunin level of ninja. He couldn't turn his head to get a good look at them without giving away that he knew. So he kept an eye on them at any rate. He also continued to watch in amusement to how Naruto ran around with that huge smile on his face. "Naruto, here we are," he said, and he led the boy under a tarp with a sign over it that read Ichiraku Ramen. "Hey there, Ichiraku." A man with an apron who was working the hot stove looked over his shoulder. "Ah, Guy, what are you doing here this fine day? And who is the little one?" he asked, looking at Naruto. Naruto had to go on his tiptoes and pulled himself up just to look over the counter. He could smell ramen from here, and he looked like a predator ready to eat its prey at all the ramen. Guy smiled and ruffled his hair. "This is Naruto Hatake, and I'm taking care of him while his father is on a mission. And he seems to like ramen, and you make the best in the city." "You got that right," he said with pride. "Dad, where is that extra stack of noodles?" "Ayami," the young teenage daughter walked in. "I think under the counter, dear." "Okay." Then she turned to see a small blonde boy trying to get onto the stool. He obviously was having trouble. "Ah, who's the little cutie?" Guy picked up Naruto and placed him on the stool. "Naruto," he said happily, wondering where his ramen was. "He's so cute," she gushed at the little boy. He had these cute little marks and these beautiful blue eyes. She couldn't remember ever seeing anyone with eyes like his before. "So what do you want, little man?" "Ramen, please." "What kind?" she asked. Naruto thought about it. He wasn't sure he liked all types of ramen. Well, not vegetarian for some reason. So he crossed his arms, looking deep in thought. Then he suddenly got an idea. "All of it." Guy laughed and gave them an order. While all this was going on, he felt that chakra of the ninja behind them. The partner didn't seem to be there, so this could be the perfect time to see who was shadowing them. "Naruto, I have to check on something. I'll be right back, so be good, okay?" Naruto went back to waiting for his ramen. The little boy was almost bouncing in his seat in anticipation. Guy had to smile at the little boy's actions and went outside. Up on the building, one of the ninjas were already lining up a shot. Ichigo took out a long tube that he had hidden under his cloak and pulled out a dart. There was enough poison on the dart to kill an elephant, more than enough to take out a small boy within a second. He waited for the boy to finish. The damn flaps were in the way, so he'd have to wait until the boy was out from the cover. "I wonder what's so special about him. Oh well, most likely just someone wanting to settle a score against Kakashi," he muttered to himself. He was thankful that the other guy left just for some reason. He watched and waited. Dynamic entry. Dynamic WHAUGH. Ichigo turned to the sound of the strange battle cry to get a foot planted into his face. He was surprised by the hit as it sent him flying through the air. He bounced a few times over the roof and nearly went over the edge. He quickly managed to stop himself and frantically pulled himself up, his heart racing from his near-fatal fall. He looked up to see that strange green ninja standing there. "What the hell? I figured you were up to no good," Guy said with a more serious look on his face. The ninja had lost the hood and he could see the young man with blue spiky hair and gray eyes. He didn't know the ninja from the bingo books, so he must either be new or just not that good. You knew. Ichigo couldn't believe that he had been found out. He figured he had shadowed the two of them perfectly. Of course I am Guy Maito, the green beast of Konoha. The power of youth burns in me with the intensity of 1,000 suns. He struck out a pose. Ichigo sweat dropped at this. This is the guy that got the drop on me. Renji will never let me live this down. Ichigo stood up. Okay then weirdo, take this. The threw out a few kunai and the guy just vanished. What the? Was that just an illusion? A powerful blow to the back of his head told him otherwise. Once more he was sent flying and landed hard on the rood. He looked to see the green ninja was behind him. He honestly didn't know how he had managed that, but he formed a few hand seals. Water technique. Rapid fire. Out of his mouth many small but fast-moving pieces of water shot out at Guy. The water shots were formed into blades and Guy noticed that when one hit the roof it actually cut into it. He knew that water at super pressure would cut through things like a blade, and so he quickly dodged the shots. His speed was so fast that Ichigo could barely even follow, and when the attack ended Guy was right in front of him, and landed a blow to his gut that felt like a sledgehammer hit him. He felt ribs break and fell to the ground holding his chest gasping for air. Guy lifted him up to face him. Now then, who sent you to attack Naruto-kun? D don't know his name, was through AM middleman. Oh god, I think my lung is punctured. He managed to get out. Screaming was heard and Guy left the man there. He wasn't going anywhere, and if he was it wouldn't be far anyway. He caught sight of another ninja running off with Naruto. Damn, so there was the other one I sent. He felt foolish for forgetting the other one. If anything happened to Naruto he would never forgive himself, plus he was sure Kakashi would kill him. Naruto didn't know what had happened. One moment he was eating another bowl, his fourth, of the best ramen he ever had, when some strange and scary ninja grabbed him. He tried to struggle, but the man was too big and strong and his grip was hurting him. Damn brat, this was supposed to be an easy gig and now I may have just lost my partner. Well, more money for me, but I'm going to skin you alive for the trouble you've caused as soon as I lose the other guy. He said in a deep and cold voice. Naruto had never been so scared in his life. He wanted his daddy to be here. He always protected him, and Naruto started to cry. Shut the hell up. He hit Naruto on the head with his free hand. I'll give you something to cry about soon enough. Naruto whimpered as the man hit him and tried not to cry. Although he hoped that his daddy would come soon to save him. After a while they came to one of the forest training grounds. Renji figured he had managed to lose the other guy by now. He threw Naruto against a tree and Naruto whimpered in pain with tear-filled eyes. He looked up at the man with long blood-red hair and dark eyes. There were some purple tattoos on his face, and when the man was snarling at him he could see a missing tooth. Brad, normally I'm all business, but you've pissed me off. He drew a large-looking curved knife. I'm going to enjoy this. Naruto closed his eyes, feeling the tears fall. He waited for the man to get over to him. It was like an eternity waiting for the man to kill him. He felt the pain of his body and wondered if it would hurt worse than this. Dynamic entry. Naruto's eyes snapped open as the bad man was kicked out of nowhere by Guy. Naruto watched with wide eyes as Guy went on to fight the ninja. He moved very fast and the bad ninja tried to attack him with the knife. Guy dodged a bit to the right, making the blade pass through where his head had just been. Now, while inside his opponent's personal space, he gripped the wrist. He twisted, making his enemy cry out in pain, dropping the weapon. Guy gave a palm strike to the man's chest, sending him back. I have no idea what kind of person would kill and harm a little innocent child, but you are definitely a very unyupful person. The other ninja didn't bother to say anything. He made a few hand signs and then slammed his hands together. Guy saw an electrical current running over the hands as his foe charged forward, trying to strike at Guy. Guy could feel the electrical energy coming off the hands even when they weren't touching his body. He could feel the hairs on his body stand up, and he knew that getting hit by just one of those wouldn't be a good thing for him. A glancing blow to his arm was proof, as he cried out in pain and felt his arm got slightly numb. The assault continued, but Guy managed to keep one step ahead of the larger and thankfully slower enemy. The man was getting very frustrated with this. He went for a large right hook and Guy jumped up and over with a flip. As he was in mid-air, Guy sent the back of the hell of his fight foot into the back of the man's skull. The blow was enough to daze him, and when he turned around feeling the world spinning, he got one of Guy's feet to his face. He flew through the air and landed, and didn't get back up. Naruto had watched it all with wide childlike eyes. He had never actually seen ninjas battle before, and he had to admit, he thought Guy had to be almost as strong as his dad. Anbu team. Kakashi and his squad had been traveling for days as they were on their way to one of Orochimaru's possible hideouts. The man was a missing nin to be killed on sight, but so far he had always remained several steps ahead of the Leaf Village. It was their hope that he was using the old base of his again, or there were clues to where he was going. Kakashi was thinking about what they would do if they faced him. He was good, but he couldn't take on one of the legendary Sannin. He glanced at the young girl to his right as they made their way through the trees. She seemed to really want to find her old sensei. Although from the killer intent he felt her trying to repress, it wasn't for a happy reunion and most likely wanted to rip him a new one. He hoped she could control herself, since going into a battle with emotions like that would get her and others killed. Then again, going into a mission with just logic wasn't the right way either. He remembered how he had focused only on the mission while Obito had gone after Rin. He still wished he could redo that day over again. Maybe they both would be alive today. Kakashi pushed those thoughts away. They were on a mission and he had to keep focus. After a bit, Kakashi stopped. I think we traveled far enough. I think we need to rest for a bit. The others looked a bit winded, although Anko looked like she wanted to keep on going. We can be there in a few more hours, she told him. Yes, but it's getting dark and I don't want to travel into a possible enemy stronghold at night, with who knows what traps along the way. Besides, we're tired, hungry, and we're not at 100%, he told her in his usual lazy tone. She seemed like she wanted to argue the point, but she seemed to take a moment and jumped down from the tree, still pissed but seemed to relent. He looked at his two other members of his team. Women, huh? He said as a joke. The other two shook their heads and jumped down. They set up a small camp with everyone taking turns at watch. Kakashi took the first watch as he pulled off his mask and sat down on a stone resting. He looked up the stars and his thoughts turned to Naruto and hoping that Guy was taking good care of him. Because if he didn't, he was going to use his Sharingan on the green ninja. He sighed and pulled out his favorite orange book and started to read it. It was hard to find time and places to read his favorite series with Naruto around. About an hour into his watch he heard some moaning and then a small gasp. He looked at the tents and after a bit Anko came out looking like she had a rough night and from the looks and sounds of it, a nightmare too. He also was surprised to see her hair down. She looked more feminine like that, more soft in a way. Or it might be the lost look on her face as she sat down across the fire staring into it. Can't sleep, huh? He said, not looking up from his book. She just shrugged and muttered something he didn't hear. He thought about what could cause the girl nightmares, but given their lives it was part of the job. It's bad enough living with it when we're awake, but it's when we fall asleep, the point we let our guards down and want nothing but peace, that it seems to attack, he said. She looked at him confused. What? Our kind of life is a hard one. We see a lot and experience more than most. When we're awake we try and bury what has harmed us, but when we're asleep that's when it can attack us at any time. She gave a small grunt looking at the strange Anbu. She was trying to figure this guy out. He didn't look much older than she was, although she was wondering why he was wearing that black mask when he wore that wolf one. Plus his forehead protector was covering one of his eyes, but from the small scar she saw, Anko figured he might be missing an eye. I don't need anyone's pity, she told him sternly. Wasn't offering. Then what? Understanding. That threw her for a bit. She had seen the looks about her when she first got back. She hated pity. She wasn't some weak little girl and hated it when people acted like she was around her. What would you know about anything? She muttered. I know loss and loneliness. She cast him a look. How so? Kakashi sighed, trying to concentrate on his book, but the memories that were coming up weren't easy. I lost my parents when I was young. My father killed himself in shame. My only two friends are dead. My sensei, who was like a father to me, is dead. All my precious people are gone except for one, and I don't ever want to lose him. Anko didn't know what to say to that. Her parents had died when she was young on missions. She really didn't have many friends. Although this Kurenai woman she had been teamed up with for her Chunin exam was nice and the only person she kept in touch with. But by the sounds of it, this guy had a rough life. Maybe that was why he hid his face from the world. So who is this person? My son, he told her. You got a kid. But you don't look that much older than I do, she said shocked. Adopted, he lost his parents the night the Nine Tails attacked. I know what it's like to grow up alone, so I took him in. At first I was more like a guardian, but over the years, I think of him more like my own son now. Kakashi meant the words. Naruto was the most precious person in the world to him, he had no doubt about it. Anko didn't know what else to say, so she just looked into the fire. After a moment she looked at him reading one of those adult books that she had heard about. She was surprised he was reading that. Please tell me you don't keep those in your home, she smirked, pointing at the book. It's perfectly good literature. He ignored her snort at that comment. Besides, I lock him up so he never finds them. Anko actually broke a small smile at that. You're a strange one. You know, I don't even know your name. Kakashi, he said, looking at her with a small smile. Normally Anbu don't just throw out the names, kind of defeats the purpose of the masks, but he didn't mind. The name registered in Anko's mind as her eyes widened. She knew only on ninja named Kakashi that was said to hide his face from the world, and by the fact he was covering one of his eyes only led to one conclusion: Sharingan Kakashi, the copy nin. He sighed at that. He really didn't like having a large reputation. It wasn't ego, it was just the way people acted around him because of it. He had enough of that as a child, being the son of the White Fang, as a kid. Odd how no one even remembered that old name these days, they just focused on what he had done. It nearly made him laugh too. As a kid he vowed to get out of his father's shadow, and he had. Barely anyone remembered the White Fang, which kind of hurt. He loved his father, and although many thought of the end of his father's life was a big disgrace, he deserved better than to be forgotten. Anko meanwhile shook her head as she looked up into the night sky. So here she was with the famous copy nin of their village. She had heard how some younger kunoichi talk about him, or maybe swoon over him. Everyone wondered what was under that mask, and others thought he was so mysterious and tried to figure him out. It nearly made Anko laugh at how here she was with him and had most likely just learned more about him than any of those so-called fangirls learned in years. She looked at the man, trying to wonder how he was raising a son all his own. Since he never mentioned a woman in his life, she guessed he was single. At least that was something those girls would be pleased to hear. Hell, even Kurenai had gossiped about him a few times. At any rate, when she got back she could have some fun with this. There was all kinds of women that would pay to learn anything about him. She smiled, her nightmare forgotten, and then she frowned, glancing at him. Did he plan on making her better? He just sat there reading one of those books, looking dead to the world. She figured he didn't plan anything and decided to try and get some more sleep. Kakashi, however, watched her from the corner of his eye and smiled. He was glad that he could help her out. There was just something about her, that pain of being totally alone in life, that made him want to help her. Maybe because it was Naruto that helped to fill the void in his life, so he wanted to help others who had that same pain. At any rate, he went back to his book. It was getting to a good point and he wanted to finish before his shift ended. Konoha. Naruto was back in bed. He was still scared to death from that morning, but he was better now that Guy was looking after him. He was holding Mr. Foxy, his favorite toy, the orange fox, in a death grip to his chest. Guy was there in the doorway looking at the young boy. He had been so full of life that morning, and looking at him now was depressing. The two ninjas had been captured and sent to interrogation, although he bet that whoever was behind this was already covering their tracks. If the middleman was still alive, he wouldn't be much longer. That person was a loose thread. But this had been the first out in the open assassination attempt of Naruto. Whoever was behind this was getting bolder. Guy felt like he personally wanted to punch the man or men behind this until they couldn't be identified. He had only known Naruto for a day, and yet he liked the boy, and looking at him now made him sad and angry. Normally he let things slide, never one to let things bother him that much, but at times like these, they were the exception. He walked into the room and sat down next to Naruto. Are you okay? When is Daddy coming back? He asked him. Not until a few more days or more. He saw how Naruto held his toy even closer. But don't worry, I'm here. No one will harm you as long as Guy Maito is protecting you, Naruto-kun. I promise you this, or I'll do 5,000 push-ups with lead weights on my back. The young boy looked up at him. Can you really do that? Of course. He flashed a grin at him. Cool. You must be almost as strong as Daddy. Well, I like to think I can rival him. I may be even stronger. My daddy is the strongest ninja there is. Well, technically the Hokage is the strongest ninja in the village. You mean the old man with the robes and funny hat? Naruto had seen him a few times, in fact he visited Naruto a couple of times a month. He found it strange that he was stronger than his dad. The Hokage is the strongest in the village and for a good reason. He protects everyone in the village. Naruto, it's his duty to protect everyone under his care, so he has to be strong. Naruto thought about that. He wanted to be as strong as his dad, he wanted to be able to be a great ninja as well. But if the old man was the strongest, then maybe he should be even stronger than him, stronger than anyone, so that he could protect his daddy. He knew that his dad went off on dangerous missions all the time and he always worried, but if he was stronger then he could look out for his dad. Little did anyone know that night Naruto made a new decision in life that would shape his future and the rest of Konoha. Guy ruffled his hair. Get some sleep, Naruto'll be right here. Naruto nodded his head, feeling a bit better. Thanks, Uncle Guy. Guy smiled at that. He gave a small laugh as Naruto tried to get some sleep, walking to the doorway. Uncle Guy. I like tar, he smirked to himself. It had been a couple of weeks and Kakashi finally managed to return home. They had finally found that base that Anko had remembered. The only problem, no one had been there for at least 3 months if not more. Basically Anko was pissed the entire trip back, and after all of that Kakashi was looking forward to getting back home and checking in on Naruto. He opened the door to his apartment, feeling better just stepping inside of the door. Ah, Kakashi, you have finally returned. A very loud voice said, and Kakashi sighed. He had forgotten about him. Hey there, Guy, was it? How was Naruto? Any problems? He caught the look in Guy's face and decided to sit down for this one. Guy filled him in on the 2 ninjas that had attacked Naruto. Kakashi knew that something like this might happen. The only problem was that he had hoped to have been there for him. He heard how the 2 ninjas were executed, although their contact was never found. It was hearing this that Kakashi was thinking of starting Naruto on his ninja training at the moment. Naruto needed to be able to protect himself, as it clearly showed that he wouldn't be around to protect Naruto all the time. He had to make sure that Naruto could be able to defend himself when the time came. Thank you, Guy. Thank you for keeping Naruto safe, he finally said to him. Guy grinned at him. It was no trouble at all, although he was scared by the ordeal he seems to have come around. Kakashi was glad to hear it. So where is he? Naruto, your father is home. He called out, and what came out would be something that gave Kakashi nightmares for 2 months. Naruto ran out dressed in a neon green one-piece suit just like Guy's. He stood beside Guy, giving a grind and a thumbs up at his father. Kakashi's only visible eye twitched at the horror before him. He was hoping that he was asleep or caught in a genjutsu. Daddy, you're back, Naruto said happily. Kakashi was too tired, and too sore to move, plus there was the shock to his system. On the one hand he wanted to thank Guy for saving his son, on the other he wanted to kill him in ways that would make the most die-hard Anbu throw up. So he would form a compromise. He would give Guy a 15-minute head start before he hunted him down. 1 year later, Naruto age 5. Again Naruto, Kakashi said. Naruto was in training gear as he practiced another attack combo, a training dummy. He had been at it for a couple of hours now and he was tiring. Kakashi watched on as he pointed out flaws in Naruto's stance or movements. Things had changed a bit for them in that year. They have moved out of the apartment and Kakashi went back to his family home. It was a modest place, but it had a very large backyard with a high brick wall that fenced out the home. It was so strange being back here. The place had to be cleaned up when he got there, and he started to tidy the place up when he moved back in. He remembered all the memories of this place, all those long forgotten things that came rushing back. How his mother would be cooking in the morning, how his father would train him like he was doing with Naruto now. The only thing that had been a major problem had been that one room, the room that his father had taken his own life in. For months he couldn't face that room. But in the end he figured if he had to live in this place he would do something about it. It had been a large tea room, but he turned it into a training room. The room was so different now that he sometimes forgot what had happened in it. Naruto of course had loved the new home. He spent all week running around, playing everywhere, and loved the large yard. There was a few trees and he kept on trying to climb them. He kept falling, but he only dusted himself off and tried again. It was like he refused to ever let anything beat him, something Kakashi knew he got from his biological father. For that year he also started Naruto on his training. He was only focusing on physical skills at the moment. When he was a bit older he would train Naruto in chakra. He still went on mission, and apparently Naruto had taken a liking to his Uncle Guy, although Kakashi refused to let him be alone with Naruto for more than a week. It had taken Kakashi over a week to unbrainwash him from Guy's influence that first time. Iruka still helped out as well, and Naruto at least had someone to play with at times thanks to young boy. Although Naruto had trouble making some friends, sometimes other kids would bully him or pick on him, others would just ignore him. Kakashi knew that the kids were most likely told this by their parents who were in turn warned about Naruto by certain members of the council. Kakashi really wanted to shove a kunai into those men, but he knew that technically they hadn't broken any laws. He just hated how Naruto would look so lonely at times when he thought no one was looking. Kakashi was brought out of his memories seeing Naruto panting and sweating and figured it was enough for the day. Okay Naruto, good work, I want you to shower and change, and for doing such a good job, I'm taking you to the park today. Really? Cool. Thanks Dad. He ran off suddenly filled with new energy. Kakashi smiled behind his mask at the boy's antics. Meanwhile across the city at the same park that a lot of families brought their children to, another parent was with her own daughter that day. The young Hinata Hyuga had been taken to the park by her mother this day. The young girl was never very good with other people. Unlike the rest of her clan, she was always shy around others, even the other children of the branch family. But because she was of the main house, the children were wary of playing with her, so she was left alone a lot. Thankfully her mother noticed this and took her out with other children now and then. The only problem was Hinata was too shy to go up most of the time. She would play by herself at times, wishing she could just go up to someone making a friend. At the moment she was watching a group of kids play and she wanted to join in, but she was too afraid. What if they didn't like her? What if she said something stupid and they made fun of her? What if she wasn't any good and they didn't want her to play? Thoughts like this plagued her entire life as far back as she could tell. So she sat with her mother, who was worried about her daughter. Hana Hyuga had hoped that getting away from the clan home would help her daughter be more open, but she seemed to be having some trouble here as well. She knew that her daughter was a very kind girl and would make lots of friends if only she wasn't so shy. Honestly, she didn't know where she got it from, or why she was like that. She knew that her husband was worried as well, especially if the clan elders thought that the daughter wasn't good enough to be the heir and maybe another member of the family should take the role. She knew that her husband never liked the cage bird technique used on the rest of the family and certainly didn't want him to bear it like his twin brother and his family had too. She stood up and Hinata did the same without a word. Why don't we get something to drink? Oh okay mommy, she said in her usual quiet voice. They walked on and she noticed a tall man with large silver hair with a small blonde boy. It was a bit odd. The man had a mask on despite him being in more casual wear and had a headband over his eye. The boy had blonde hair and strange markings on his face, with a black shirt with an orange swirl pattern on them. Dad, after this can you teach me more cool ninja stuff? The boy asked excitedly. His father sighed. Yes, I swear Naruto, for a boy your age you seem to like training. Most kids want to play instead. Well, I don't really got many friends, he said, and suddenly his face took on a sad look. It was then that Hana knew the couple. By now the entire Hyuga clan knew of Naruto Hitaki and his role as the prison for the nine-tailed demon. However, it was never spoke outside of the clan as per the law, and the children were never told. Although she had overheard a few of the branch family members expressing concern for the safety of their children. Personally, she wasn't sure what to think, and maybe it was time for her to find out for herself what this Naruto was like. After all, he seemed nice enough as it was. She walked up to them and Kakashi noticed a Hyuga woman walking towards them. Everyone knew a Hyuga when they saw them. The pearl eyes were a dead giveaway, plus they always carried themselves with this type of elegance. She wore a blue and very expensive komodo, had long dark hair and a very beautiful features, and it soon came to him who exactly it was. Good morning Hyuga-sama, Kakashi said with a slight nod of his head. Good morning to you Hitaki-san. She said politely. Please drop the san, I never liked that stuff anyway. He waved it off. She looked at him. Everyone knew the legendary copy ninja, but she had expected a bit more. He was way too relaxed and seemed bored. He didn't carry himself like a warrior, and you'd never know he was with the way he talked. Naruto looked up at the lady. She seemed kind of pretty, but then he noticed something else. There was a small motion behind the lady and Naruto went to look. He walked around her to see a small girl roughly his age with short dark hair hiding behind the lady. Hey, what's your name? He asked. The girl made an eep sound and clutched her mother, but looked at who asked. She looked to see a boy with golden hair and blue eyes looking at her confused. Hinata wasn't sure what to do. The boy had asked her a question and it was rude not to say anything, but she couldn't seem to find her voice. Her name is Hinata, now introduce yourself, her mother said softly. The girl released her mother's clothing and her cheeks flushed a bit. She fiddled with her fingers looking down a bit. My name is Hinata Hyuga. The boy only smiled at her. I'm Naruto, you want to go play? Hinata looked up both shocked and surprised. No one had asked her to play before, but he seemed to want to. She looked up at her mother and she could see the woman smile and nod at her. Hinata gave a small smile and nodded. Cool, let's go play. He grabbed her hand and quickly led her away as she blushed a bit. You don't mind Naruto playing with her? Kakashi asked, watching the children. No, he seems like a nice boy and my daughter has trouble with making friends. She said, a small smile on her lips, seeing her daughter play with another child like a normal child should. Kakashi nodded his head. Naruto has the same, but for other reasons, I'm afraid. I think Hinata is the only child that agreed to play with him like this before. Then maybe they'll be good for each other, she said, watching. Naruto couldn't help but be happy. For the first time ever he had someone to play with. Sure, she was kind of strange. Her cheeks were red a lot. She had eyes like she had never seen before. They were all pale and with no iris in them. She talked kind of funny, but she seemed really nice. They started to play on the slides and jungle gym. He helped her out here and there, and then they got to something he always wanted to try, the seesaw. Hey, come on Hinata, I always wanted to try this. He took her hand, leading her to it. He looked at it confused, not sure how you got it started. Normally he only saw kids while playing it, not how they got on or off. Do you know how it works? Hinata nodded. Why yes, one goes on first and jumps up. Then the other has to jump onto it when the other part goes down. Oh okay, then you go on first then. Hinata got on the smallest one since it looked to be built for kids their age. She had never got to play like this before. Naruto was just so fun to be around. He made her smile and feel happier than she had been in a very long time. Plus that smile of his somehow always made her feel something, like when you felt the sun on your face on a nice spring day. It was warm and comforting. She only felt like this around her mother. Hinata prepared herself and jumped up. Naruto quickly got on. He barely made it onto it, but he got on. Then he got ready and jumped up. Both children had never been on something like this. The way they rushed up into the air and just stopped and then came back down was a new type of fun for them. Their parents looked on, happy to see their children play like this. It had been a very long time since they started to play, and Hana noticed the time. She walked over to the playing children. Hinata, it's time to get back home now. Why yes mother, she said and looked to Naruto. You can get off first. Naruto smiled at her. She nodded and got off. Unfortunately Naruto was about to get a very important lesson, a lesson in gravity. He hadn't expected to fall faster than the last time. The seat hit the ground hard and he bounced off and landed onto the ground on his back. Hinata gasped and ran over to him worried. Naruto, are you okay? Ow. Next time I got to remember to be careful. He propped himself up and gave her a smile. Hinata's worried look melted at his smile and she couldn't help but smile back. Then Naruto frowned a bit. He hadn't enjoyed himself like this in a long time and he didn't want to stop, but he knew that her mother had her reasons for going. Hana Hyuga walked up, glad to see the young boy was okay, although she kept a slightly passive face as was the way of the clan. Hinata, you can say goodbye to your friend, but I can take you back here and you two can play again another day. Naruto blinked a few times. He never had a real friend his own age before. He looked at Hinata then. Hey Hinata, are we, friends now? Hinata blushed as her fingers were interlaced. The truth was she liked Naruto and she did want to be his friend. She looked at her mother with hope-filled eyes and her mother only smiled at her. Hinata brightened up looking at him and gave a shy smile and nodded her head. Naruto's return smile was large and full of happiness. He finally had made a friend, a real friend. I'd like to have you as a friend. Hey dad, you think Hinata-chan can come over and play some time? Hinata was surprised again. She had never had a friend to just go over and play with. If this was what a friend was like, then she enjoyed it. She hoped that Naruto's father said yes, and that her mother would allow Naruto to come to the Hyuga compound sometime. For the first time in her short life, Hinata felt like there was something to look forward to. Well, I don't see why not, that is if Hyuga-sama here doesn't mind. Kakashi smiled at Naruto, ruffling his wild hair. I think something can be arranged, she told the group. They said the goodbyes and she led her daughter back holding her hand. She could see how happy Hinata was and was glad that her daughter finally found a friend in Naruto. She of course would talk to her husband about this, but she knew how to get him to see her way. After all, what kind of wife couldn't keep their husband in line? So Hinata, what do you think of Naruto? He seems like a nice boy, she asked her daughter. I like him, he's fun. And makes me happy, she blushed looking at the ground. That's good then Hinata, she said to her. Uchiha compound. Fugaku Uchiha wasn't very happy, which was hard to see at times. He usually wore such a hard expression on his face. But things were not going well. First off, someone in the group had hired those damn ninjas to take out the boy last year. He hadn't sanctioned that, and now the boy would be watched even more closely. His people had told of how Anbu members were making passes over the Hitaki home now, and even at times would make a pass by the demon boy when they saw him. He knew it was the Hokage's doing. The old man had to have gone senile to let that boy live. He was a danger to the entire village. If the seal on that boy failed, the demon could get loose, and then it would be the end for this village and everyone in it. They had lost a few promising Uchihas that day, and he knew that if the demon got out again, there would be no stopping its rampage. He sighed as he walked through the large home. He looked out a doorway, seeing his oldest son Itachi overlooking his younger brother's training. Sasuke, even though his own son so far hadn't shown the same level of talent as his older brother, it would seem that his youngest child did not measure up. It was a pity, but then again, to match Itachi would take a miracle. His oldest son was a prodigy. Not any other clan could lay claim to such a ninja, not even their rivals the Hyuga clan. But there were other things that worried him. Over the years, Itachi was getting more and more distant. It was getting harder and harder to understand what was going through his son's head, and it was starting to worry him. He had no idea why, but it did, and the more time passed, the more worried he what Itachi would do. He wasn't sure what, but it was obvious that he didn't have the same respect for the clan like other Uchiha members did. In fact, he kept his distance from the clan, all except for his best friend Shisui Uchiha. Fugaku would send for the boy. He would order him to keep an eye on Itachi, and report anything out of the ordinary. He knew the boy was loyal to the clan first than to his own best friend, so he didn't have to fear about the boy telling Itachi. He watched as Sasuke missed a target with a kunai. Fugaku sighed and hung his head a bit. Why couldn't his youngest son have the same talent as his older brother? He walked away wondering if maybe Sasuke would be better off with a life outside of being a ninja. After all, it was obvious that unless things got any worse, Itachi would lead the clan. Sasuke had seen his father there, and when he saw how disappointed he was in him, Sasuke felt a deep shame. All his young life he just wanted to make his father proud, so why couldn't he do it? Why was his brother so much better than he was? Young Sasuke just didn't understand why he felt like he was so weak all the time. He knew that his family was supposed to be the strongest there was, but if he was weak, what did that make him? You shouldn't let what he thinks get you down, little brother, Itachi said, walking over to him. He doesn't know everything or what real power is. Keep at it and prove him wrong. Sasuke looked up to his older brother. He was everything that he tried to be. He trained so hard to be as good as Itachi, but never seemed to have the power to get there. But he wouldn't stop. He would be as strong as his brother, and he would make his father proud of him one day. He wouldn't rest until he had proven himself to his father and clan that he was more than just the younger brother of Itachi. He would one day be on par with his older brother. Sasuke got up and went back to work training. He was tried and aching, but he wouldn't stop until he reached his goal, not matter what the cost. Itachi looked on, no emotions on his face, but he could see that Sasuke had potential. He just needed the right motivation to let it out. Out of all the clan, it was his younger brother that had the only true potential because he worked hard. The others had gotten lazy and lax. Well, not him. He would prove just how inferior this clan was to him. He just wasn't sure how, and besides, this village offered him nothing anyway. He had no challenges, nothing to truly test himself. He had to go out on missions to find challenges, and even those were disappointments. He walked away, leaving his little brother to his training as he thought more about his future in this village and with this clan. It had been a couple of months since Naruto met Hinata, and even though he hadn't made any more friends, she was still his best friend. They would play together all the time. They would meet in that park, and once Hinata's mother even brought her over to play. They had played in Naruto's large backyard. It wasn't as big as Hinata's home, not that Naruto would know since he hadn't been there yet. But to him it was huge. Hinata herself was better for having a friend in her life, and she looked forward with her time with Naruto. He was always smiling and making her feel happy. One time an older boy had been picking on her and she was reduced to tears. The next thing she knew, Naruto had tackled the older boy and was beating him up for making her cry. The fight hadn't been that long and the older boy was sent running, but Hinata had never had anyone stand up for her like that. She was thankful for someone to stand up for her like that. Naruto just didn't like to see Hinata cry, and he was bullied himself now and then, but if it was him he could take it, but not when they went after his friend. Kakashi himself was noticing how sometimes Naruto got into fights with some boys, sometimes he would find him with a bloody lip, or dirt and bruises on his son's body. Nothing major, but he didn't like that fact that other kids were picking on him. Unfortunately, he knew for a fact that the older generation by now all knew or knew enough about Naruto. He caught some people glaring at him, so Kakashi glared back. He didn't want to think what would happen to Naruto if he wasn't around to take care of him. But he kept up Naruto's training, and he had to admit Naruto had a healthy work ethic. He kept on going sometimes until he just dropped. He was kind of proud of that. With some help he could become a great ninja one day. After all, given who his biological father and adopted father, it was no surprise if Naruto became a legend in his own right. It was king of nice to know that the Hatake name through Naruto would continue on. Besides, with his busy life he was doubtful that he would find a woman to settle down with and have any more kids. Sure, he went out now and then, but nothing serious. Some were just some women that wanted to unmask him, not that they ever did. Others wanted to know if the rumors about him were true, although with the rumors that he found out, Kakashi was surprised since he was sure half the things he hadn't tried yet. But now there was another problem. He was being sent on a mission now and he couldn't find Iruka to see if he could take care of Naruto. He was meeting with the Hokage now to see about the mission and he had no idea on who to ask to look after Naruto. He wanted to make sure that he was well looked after, of course. He entered into the Hokage's room bowing slightly. "I'm here, Hokage-sama." "Ah, good, Kakashi. I need you to go out and scout out the border. I've had reports of a group of missing nin that are from rock that is going around the borders. They stick close by raiding villages and then sneak across into the border of a country that is not on friendly terms with the one they just pillaged." Kakashi nodded. "So any pressuring ninjas will have trouble. Say if we went into Cloud territory they might just attack us using the rogue group as a cover to settle old scores." He had to admit it was dangerous but a cunning plan, plus the fact that he was most likely going to lead Anbu group meant these had to be a class ninjas or above. This was definitely going to be a bit difficult to do. He was already making some plans on taking with him a backup squad just in case. "Before I go I need the usual favor," he said, and the old man nodded. "I take it Iruka isn't free this time?" the old man said, smoking his pike. Kakashi nodded. "And you know my rule on Guy, no more than 5 days alone with Naruto. Ever. So I need someone trustworthy and can handle things. You remember what happened last year with Naruto? I want to make sure who is left can handle things. That and Naruto," he silently said to himself. With all the little tricks he had shown Naruto in the year, his son was getting pretty devious and had seemed to like pulling pranks now and then. The Hokage was deep in thought on who to trust. He knew that word that Naruto held the demon had circulated over the years. Thankfully no one had told the younger generation, but still it seemed that certain people were so afraid of the boy they would bend if not break his decree. He was wondering who to trust when the door was slammed open and a very pissed off Kunoichi walked into the room. "The hell is this?" Anko demanded, throwing down a letter. "A simple C-rank mission. I didn't bust my ass to make Jonin just to do this, old man." Normally a person in his position would take offense to that, but he only smiled. He knew that Anko wouldn't like that, but honestly it had been the only mission at the time and she was getting restless. "I'm sorry Anko, but there aren't any more. It was either that or I give it to a Genin team. This sucks." She sat down with her arms crossed with a pout on her face. She needed some action. She was going stir crazy with nothing to do. Plus she needed to prove herself, that she wasn't some failure, that she had the skills. She then noticed the Anbu with the mask and she felt like she had seen that mask before. But after a while all the Anbu looked alike to her. "See something you like?" She grinned at him hoping for a reaction. He just shrugged, which only pissed her off. It was then that the Hokage got an idea. "Well Anko, I do have a rank B mission that came in that you might need to handle." Oh. Now she was interested and didn't notice how Kakashi suddenly stiffened. "It's a bodyguard position. Sounds okay to me. She shrugged. You can't mean. Kakashi was about to disagree. He had nothing against her, hell, he actually respected her. You got something against me? She asked him with a dangerous tone and a glint in her eye that said if he said the wrong thing, she'd cut off his balls and feed them to him. After their first meeting, he had looked up her career now and then and he was pleased with her abilities. Sure, she had some unique personality quirks, but then so did most of the best ninja. He knew at times it was just a coping mechanism. He signed knowing that if anyone could protect Naruto, this woman could do that, but who would protect Naruto from her? Very well, the Anbu will show you the way, Anko. The old man grinned, knowing full well Anko's reaction to her being manipulated into this. Anko followed the ninja through the city. He was pretty quiet, but that was Anbu for you. She followed him to a pretty nice home, traditional style, 2-story home with a large rock wall enclosing the area. A very large backyard was also seen as well. She looked around the place. It was pretty nice and wondered who lived in this home. She got her answer in the form of a rushing blonde boy that latched onto the other ninja. Dad, you're back already. The little boy smiled and Anko's eyes widened. This was the ninja's son. She looked at the young boy, blonde hair, blue eyes that she swore she had never seen on another person, and there were these strange little marks on his face. He looked up curiously at her and she was wondering just what the hell was going on here. Hey Dad, who's the lady? He asked. The man laughed and pulled off his mask, and if Anko was shocked before, now she really was. It was Kakashi. She hadn't seen him since that one mission, and now here she was in his home and meeting his son. Although she remembered that he was adopted, so that was why the little boy looked nothing like him. This is Anko. She's going to be looking after you while I'm gone, Naruto. What? She screamed out. I thought this was a bodyguard duty. It is. You're guarding him. He smiled at her. It's babysitting. I am not a baby. Naruto shouted back at her. Shut it, kid. Make me ugly. What did you call me? You heard me. Kakashi was wondering if he should rethink his position on Guy, at this rate. He pulled Anko aside while she screamed bloody murder at Naruto while his son only gave it back right at her. It was kind of funny seeing a Jonin arguing with a little boy, but after they were alone she continued on with her ranting. First at him, then at the Hokage, and then at anything that came to mind. It took 15 minutes for her to calm down. You calm now? He asked, leaning against a wall. No. You at least going to stop screaming? Yeah. Good. He pushed himself off the wall. Now listen, Anko, this is important. Were you given the file on the QB when you were made Jonin? Yeah, it was about how, him, she realized that it was Naruto that had the demon in him. The file said that the boy had been named Naruto and that he had 6 marks on his face. It went on saying he had been adopted by a ninja, but by who had been blacked out. The only reason Kakashi would ask about that file was if Naruto was the container for that demon. Kakashi nodded, impressed with how fast she got it. Yes, and because of that many view him with fear or hatred. In fact, last year there is an assassination attempt the last time I left for a long mission. So you can understand why I want someone I either trust or someone powerful enough to be trusted with my son's life. Anko looked into his one eye and she could see he was dead serious about this. He means a lot to you, huh? He may not be of my blood, but in every other sense he's my son. I've watched over him, cared for him, I've seen his first steps, his first words, I've been there for his entire life. I know what it's like to be alone in the world, and I wanted to make sure he never felt that pain. Although I've not done as good a job as I would have liked. She looked at him confused, not knowing that the only people in Naruto's life was the Hokage who visited him now and then, Kakashi, his uncle, Guy, Iruka, the 2 people that ran his favorite ramen stand, and finally Hinata, his only friend. He wanted more for his son, but with certain adults poisoning the minds of the younger generation, it wasn't easy for Naruto to make friends. Anko wanted to ask a bit more, but the look she saw made her rethink things. She guessed that Naruto did deserve to be protected. Even if he was a brat, he was still just a kid. Fine. But I'm not happy about this, just so you know. I know. Anko, thank you. He told her. They went into the other room and Anko tried to get used to the fact she was going to be a glorified babysitter for the little brat. She looked down at the little blonde, wondering how she got herself roped into this. Later, Kakashi had left for his mission, leaving Anko a few things that she should know about, like Naruto's bedtime, not to feed him sugar and other things. There was a list. She just scanned through it and put it away. She took the time to look around the house. It was kind of nice, although kind of bland. She found a nice training room at least, and it would give her something to do later on. She found Naruto sitting in the living room, coloring and watching some kid's show. She sighed. She really didn't want to watch something like that, and as she sat on the couch she took the remote and changed it. Hey, I was watching that, Naruto said to her. Life is tough, so get used to it, she said offhandedly. Please. He looked up at her with one of those cute little pouts. With his large blue eyes and cute little face, most people wouldn't be able to stand to look at that for more than a minute before caving in, and Naruto knew this since he used it on his dad a lot. That is when his dad knew well enough not to look at him when he tried it. Anko, however, just stared blankly at him and turned to her TV. Sorry, that doesn't work on me, but nice try. Naruto let the face fall. Meanie. Brat. Old hag. What did you call me? I'm not even 20 yet. Really? Naruto tilted his head. I thought you were 30. 30. By this time Naruto ran off laughing with a pissed off Anko hot on his heels with said little boy laughing. Over with Kakashi, he and his group were traveling through the large trees that for some reason were always around in the fire country and a lot of the others. It was odd that how there were so many all over the place, with the exception of the country of wind given it was a desert. Some thought it might be from people like the first Hokage, who with his specialty in using tree type of jutsus, but Kakashi put it aside. His team stopped for a moment to catch their breath and to make plans on where to go to next. He sent Owl and Crane out first, while he was with Falcon and Ox. It was odd to always call each other by the mask they wore, but that was Anbu for you. They kept their identities secret from most, although Kakashi was starting to think he might want to go back to being a Jonin. Besides, these missions were starting to take a toll. That was the life in Anbu. You did the jobs that most didn't have the stomach for, but the downside was what it did to you. You could only do this for so long before it destroyed you. Images of his father suddenly got into his head and he quickly put that away. That was another reason he was thinking of getting out of this. He had enough saved up now, and going back to Jonin pay he would be able to handle, and Naruto was older now. He didn't want to end up like his dad and leave Naruto alone in the world like he had been. He sighed, hoping that Anko and Naruto were getting along. "Area, you all right?" Ox asked him. "Just worried about my son is all. I hope he isn't causing too much trouble." What could a kid possibly do? Kakashi actually laughed a bit at that. He picks things up fast, he's already getting good at the basic taijutsu skills, and I've been teaching him a few other things like lock picking and how to get out of ropes. Ox looked at him for a moment. Why would you teach a kid that? He just shrugged. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Hataki home. Now then, you just keep here and I'll let you go after an hour, Anko said, standing up and wiping her brow. Let me go, you big meanie. Naruto yelled out, who was at this time tied to a chair. And to complete it, she gagged him lightly as he glared up at her. Hey, be thankful I'm not into spanking, plus I've been known to do a hell of a lot worse, kid. She gave him one of those grins she reserved to scare the crap out of people, and it seemed to work well on bratty kids too. There, now just let Auntie Anko have 1 hour of peace and quiet, she said, and closed the door. She didn't get 2 feet when the sounds of thumping and thrashing was heard. She sighed and rolled her eyes. I should get paid more for this, she muttered. Anko was finally enjoying the quiet. She was on the couch just watching the TV and zoning out. It was half an hour later that she suddenly realized something. It was quiet, too quiet. In fact, the muffled sounds of Naruto were suddenly gone. Now she got a very bad feeling about this and carefully got up and went to the room she left him in. She opened the door a bit and looked in. Her eyes widened at the sight of the empty chair and ropes on the floor. She burst into the room. How the hell did, wham. Anko felt something hit her head. She had been so surprised she let her guard down and a small sack of flour that had been rigged to the door hit her on the head. She was now white as a ghost with a large vein on her head. That little brat is dead. Sounds of laughter and running feet told her where the soon-to-be dead boy was. She ran after him and saw him take a corner. She was going to make sure the little brat stayed in place and raised one of her arms. From out from under her trench coat a long green snake shot out. She saw it go after the boy and take the same corner. Then she heard lots of snapping noises and she stopped dead in her tracks. She knew by now that Naruto had a tendency for traps, and she wasn't going to fall into another one. She pressed herself up against the wall and carefully looked around it. Her jaw dropped at the sight of the hallway covered in mouse traps on the floor. She saw her snake was caught in several of them before it disappeared in a cloud of smoke. It's not possible. It just isn't. Me, the great Anko Mitarashi, who was trained under that snake bastard Orochimaru, who scares the crap out of seasoned jonins, is getting her ass kicked by a damn toddler. She screamed in her mind. If this got out she would be a laughingstock, so she resolved that this kid was going down and hard. Naruto had been hiding for the past 10 minutes and was getting bored. The crazy lady didn't seem to be following him. He was hiding out in the laundry room under a pile of clothes thinking she wouldn't want to check in the dirty pile. But he was getting bored with this now. Although she was crazy, she was kind of fun too. He never had an adult like this. His dad could ground him and Uncle Guy usually didn't have it in him to play on Naruto's level. Meaning Naruto liked to do anything to win and Guy was a bit too straightforward. Anko however seemed to be like him. She would do whatever it took to win. So now, flee bored out of his mind, Naruto decided to take the fight back to her. He started to sneak to his room where he put supplies for this and hoped that the crazy lady wouldn't find him. He didn't see anyone, so when he got to his room he felt he was safe. He opened his door. And another sack of flour fell, only now hitting him. Ah, what the? Laughing was heard and he spun around to see Anko there. She still had flour over her body but was mostly cleaned up. She stood there laughing at him. Serves you right, brat. How do you like a taste of your own medicine? Naruto scowled but then grinned. This was going to be more fun than he thought. Good, but you know I have to get even now, right, crazy lady? Anko got a grin on her face that most people would be creeped out by. Oh, you think you can take me on, brat? Naruto responded by quickly closing his door. Anko took only 3 large steps to get to it, and when she got in, she saw Naruto dive under his bed. She put her hands on her hips, actually disappointed. Come on, I thought you could think better than that. She waited for him to come out but lost patience after 30 seconds. Come on out already. No answer. Okay, then we do it the fun way. She took the bed and lifted it up and frowned at the fact no one was under the small bed. She then noticed that the panel that was on the wall was removed. The little boy had an escape route, most likely from Kakashi, to ensure Naruto had an escape route if the house was ever attacked. Well damn, Anko said, lowering the bed. Looks like the fun was going to continue. Well, despite everything she had to admit, this was anything but boring. Naruto was trying to make his way as quietly as he could through the house. Thankfully he knew the home better than Anko did and knew all the great hiding spots with his games of hide and seek with Hinata. He managed to get into the backyard and decided to make a run for the really big tree and hide out there for a bit. He only made it 5 feet from the door when a spray of really cold water hit him. When he stopped, he glared up to the roof where Anko was with the hose. Point for me, brat. Naruto grinned at her and the rest of the day went on like this, with the two of them going in an all-out war to one up the other. Anko got in a few good shots. She once managed to pin him to a wall with her kunai through the edges of his shirt. Only when she took her eyes off him he slipped out of his shirt and ran off. Naruto then got her back with greasing part of a floor, so when she chased him she slipped and crashed into a wall. Naruto ended up running form snakes, kunai and a few low-level fire attacks, but he gave it back just as much as he could. By now Naruto broke out his water guns and had soaked Anko in water that had ice in the tank, so it was really, really cold. The outcry she gave was well worth it when he lost one of these guns in fleeing. Anko picked it up and the two ended up in a water fight in the backyard. Both of them were wet, muddy and covered in various things such as flour, sugar, feathers, and paint. Both of them, by the time the sun was going down, were laying on the ground panting, feeling very tired, sore in some areas and just overall drained. Anko couldn't believe she felt so drained by just a kid. She usually only felt like this during extreme training sessions. Naruto was looking up at the darkening sky with a large smile on his face. Despite everything, it had been really fun. So, who won? Anko couldn't take it anymore. Here she was a jonin and had spent most of the day going around chasing a kid like she was a kid herself, and he thought it all a game. Truth was, she never had much of a childhood and she never really got to play much as a child, and she found that she had fun herself. It was a total surprise for her, but she actually had fun. It was so twisted that to her it actually made sense. It might not for most others, but for her it did. Don't know and don't care. Come on. We need to clean up and then I can order some food. Can we have ramen? He asked. As long as I can have some dango too. What's dango? She looked shocked at the boy as they got up and then she smiled. I've got so much to teach you about the finer things in life, and Dango is at the top of the list to me. That night, Naruto woke up. It was late in the night by what the clock said. He yawned and felt his dry throat. He knew he couldn't sleep with it like this and grumbled as he got out of bed. He pushed the covers and grabbing his stuffed fox, Mr. Foxy, he went into the halls. He went for the bathroom rubbing his eye. It was dark but he knew his home very well by now. Then he stopped hearing something. He moved to his dad's room where the Anko lady was sleeping. He pushed the door open a bit and looked inside. Anko was on the bed but was tossing and turning and muttering to herself. Naruto knew it was a nightmare. He had seen his dad have a few as well, but his dad never liked to talk about them. So young Naruto climbed into his dad's bed and shook the woman awake. Hey crazy lady, wake up. He froze as she shot up and pressed a kunai to his throat. He froze in that instant and the look in her eyes were of a cold killer. But she realized what was going on, her eyes widened and she quickly dropped the weapon away. Oh god kid, I'm sorry. Naruto was still a bit scared but put it away. Ever since that day the two ninjas had tried to kill him, he promised not to be scared again. He noticed how sad she looked for a moment looking at the wall in front of her. Bad dream, huh? He asked. Anko nodded her head. She didn't want to tell him what exactly. She could barely remember them anyway, but it was all the same. The darkness, the cries of pain, horrible images, people twisted around into horrible images, pain. But she remembered the darkness, the loneliness the most. She noticed the kid was still there in his orange PJs looking at her. What, you want Mr. Foxy to sleep with? He asked honestly, like it was the answer to her problems. Huh. She looked confused. He handed her a stuffed fox. This is Mr. Foxy, he's my favorite toy. I always sleep with him, and when I get nightmares I hug him tightly. I even give him to my dad when he gets nightmares too. Anko had to grin at how strange it all was. She wasn't sure what was more funny. A child trying to console her on things he couldn't possibly understand, or the thought of the great Sharingan Kakashi slept with a stuffed fox when he had nightmares. She tried not to laugh at that image, but it was pretty funny. What is with this family? Do they go around trying to make others feel better or just me? She thought to herself, remembering how Kakashi had talked to her a year ago. It was a long time, but she still remembered that night. She looked down at the kid and smiled, not one of her smiles she used to scare people, but one of her rare and true smiles. Thanks, brat. He smiled up at her since she didn't mean the word in anger but had said it in a gentle tone. Night, crazy lady. He jumped off, going to get his drink of water. Anko snorted and shook her head, trying not to laugh. She flopped back onto the bed looking at the toy. It looked well worn and some repair jobs to it, obviously something that was cared for a long time. She decided after everything maybe she liked the kid after all. Sure, he could be a bit of a brat, but she couldn't remember the last time she had been pushed like that and she actually had fun. You're certainly a strange one, Naruto, but I'll admit this, you make things interesting. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.